keeping a beginner's mind where even though you've been pitching this, you've been selling for years and years, when you approach a new account, you really, at the end of the day, are just not 100% sure who's the correct person.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
Hey, and this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com.
You've got your list of target companies, but how do you identify the best person to contact? Do you reach out to the final user of your product, services? Or do you try to contact higher in the hierarchy, hoping for the message to be pushed down? In this cast, we'll see how to build your list using data, ways to approach different departments, and even a surprised mini teardown on an email that got Jack to reply. Enjoy. All right, what are we going to talk about today, Jack?
Who to contact at your target accounts, at the companies you want to go after.
Why does that matter? Is that not obvious?
Right. That's a great question because I think a lot of newcomers to cold email will find it quite obvious. Just email head of whatever department it's relevant for and job done.
Yeah, I love how you present that like, newcomers.
Yeah.
Why would the more experienced one think it's not that obvious?
Because with experience, you come to realize that every organization is structured a little bit differently. And therefore, one company that says, oh yeah, that's handled by our marketing department. Another may say that's sales, or another maybe smaller company may say, yeah, that's the founder's decision. So it comes down to two things. A, every organization is different. And B, you usually don't get to find out these things until you start contacting. But with that said, it still matters in the order of the people that you contact at each company.
Jack, I only got like a design tool, so I'm just going to contact designer and then that's it, right? It's not relevant for me, this episode, is it?
Nope. I really don't think this cast is relevant because if you're targeting by job title, there is no way on earth that you will get someone outside of designers on your list. But if you are taking more of an account-based approach, then you're probably already scratching your head a little bit about wondering who you should reach out to because you've gotten so many different answers.
And that's interesting because I thought you would actually say the opposite, Jack. You would say like, no, even if you're targeting only designers, you may find out that, you have more chances with purchasing decisions from the manager or whatever. So it's interesting that you're saying like, nope, this cast not for you in such black and white kind of approach.
I'm thinking about this. I've had a campaign in the past, let's say, that was targeted just for product managers, like just for product managers only.
Yeah.
There was certain company attributes that had to fit, but for the most part, that was a simple list to build. It was basically extract product managers in certain industries and then double check the company fits the mold. And if so, send them product manager type emails. And
got it.
To me, that was a little bit more straightforward simply because it was such a niche product. Now, at the end of the day, you're totally right. The buying decision may lie in the CEO, which a lot of times it did. They needed to get approval up top, or it relied in the marketing department in general. But I suppose I'm thinking about the person who's targeting designers who are the unique case of the buyer and the touch person. But look, that happens very rarely. I think you brought up a good point.
When does that really matter? When should we actually spend time and attention to this particular question?
When you're list building, just period. You have to pay attention to it. Let's talk about what you can do to give yourself the best shot at reaching the right person, given that every organization is different. And sometimes you really don't know. My recommendation is going back to the data, look at your current customer roster, and hopefully you've got a sheet of names, emails, companies, company sizes, job titles of your touch person. And if you don't already have one, start building one or pull it from your CRM so that you can just take a look at the job titles that have been your buyer in the past. And that, to me, is the best place to start.
That's going to be an awesome episode because I'm going to play devil advocate. I like that.
All right.
Imagine then you're contacting enterprise type of sales. Those have like 3 to 4, 5 months, sales cycle. So at the end of the day, the people who end up as the buyer or purchase person would actually not really be the initial person that's been contacting that the beginning that actually were your champion in that company.
Right. It would be like the product manager who took it to the CEO.
Yeah, exactly.
But typically, in your case, or if you're listening, this may be a little bit different. But what I'm most interested in is the list of champions. So if you need the product managers to rave about your solution to their marketing department or CEO, then you want to be talking to them. So instead of maybe thinking about who your buyer is, let's reframe that a little bit. Let's focus in on champions. I'm with you there.
Yeah, I love that. I like that too, actually. You build your list of who's going to be my potential champion in that company.
Yeah. And typically, here's what's nice is like, you can probably look at your support tickets and the people asking the question, using your tool or interacting with your service, those are the champions that you will be having in the company. So you could probably extract those people in order to get the champions. What's your take on that?
I'm kind of like thinking, I had like a sales call, a sales demo with a big company. And in fact, that wasn't the end user of my tool that was, interviewing me or was actually the champion for QuickMail. He was actually their manager because he said, my team is losing too much time doing X, Y, Z. And as an individual, cool, you can reach out to them, but the pain will be like minimal because it will be just for that person. But if you contact the manager or the team leader, then that pain will be multiplied by all the people he has to supervise and, and reach quota and stuff.
Do you know what's pretty cool, Jeremy?
Tell me.
I think this discussion here proves the point that every organization is different. Really, I mean...
That's right.
Sometimes it's simple. Other times there's hidden buyers, there's hidden champions that we don't really know. So this is all coming down to, keep in mind, as an SDR or a salesperson or a cold emailer, you can have hunches on who you should contact. You can have data that tells you, hey, in the past, these job titles have responded positively, but you have to appreciate that you won't always be right. So I'm going to recommend a little outreach process that allows a little wiggle room for inaccurate guesses if you reach out to the incorrect person. I think that to me is most important.
All right. Put my engineering mind on the back seat and then we can be 90% accurate. That's it. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So you've taken your list of buyers, champions, of people at companies that have raised their hand or purchased or pitched your product internally. And we're going to start there. I first take the list of job titles and I put them in order of most likely to be the best person and least likely to be the best person. But I include all of them because certain edge cases allow for different job titles. But I start at the top, most likely to be a good fit.
Do you segment or do you actually just list them in order? And
you have to segment. Keep in mind, like if you have VP of sales and director of sales, they can see the same emails because for the most part, they have very, very much overlapping job responsibilities. But what you do want to segment is product people versus CEOs versus marketing people versus salespeople, because they care about different things. And whenever that happens, it's time to segment. But here's like a small side note. Don't feel the need to make dozens of segments and dozens of campaigns immediately. This is a nice recipe for complicating things with your outreach program. So instead, what you may want to look at doing is use merge tags in order to tailor different selling points to your different types of buyers or people on your list. So the CEO may get a different merge tag than the VP of sales, than the VP marketing, than the SDR. So just using merge tags can keep everything in one campaign. So it's much easier to track while still making things much more personalized.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, so that's what we're doing. We're starting at the top with most likely. And a question always arises whenever we're figuring out who to contact. And that's, how many people in each company should you be reaching out to?
That's right. How many?
My recommendation depends on how big the company is. If you're going after Reebok, you have a lot more wiggle room in order to figure out how many prospects you can reach out to at Reebok than you would at, say, a company like ours that's much, much smaller. So if you're reaching out to the startup and the just small business space, I recommend just one person. But here's the thing, I'm going to say one at a time, and I'll get to that in a bit. If you're reaching out to enterprise, I would recommend one per department at a time. right? So you might reach out to one marketing person, one marketing director, and let them run through a good chunk of your sequence or even the entire thing. And only then, if you don't get a response from them, then you can revisit that company and assign a new prospect to make that connection. But hopefully this prospect is going to get enough customization so that it's not glaringly obvious that you're just shotgunning the whole company and hoping for the best. If you want to do the best job, make sure that each person feels like you wrote that campaign for them, even though you reached out to a different professional a couple weeks back. And if you space things out, it makes it less awkward that, I don't know, like I like to think that departments talk to each other. They're sitting next to each other at work every day. If they get a lousy cold email, hey, did you get that message? Yeah, me too. And like, it's not the right way to start that conversation. So pick one at a time and go for it. Much smaller companies, you've got to be more on the spot here because there's just far fewer employees to reach out to. On the plus side, there's more shared responsibilities per employee. So you have a much better shot at getting the person in charge than you would at a 500 person company. But it's much faster to have things spread around if you're reaching out to a smaller company. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I want to get your take on one thing, Jack. At some point there was this Brian Kreutzbillgirl.
Oh, yeah.
It was advertising.
The appropriate person.
Yeah, it was advising to actually send individual emails to a few people at the same time and saying in the email body that you're contacting those people as well. So for example, if your company had Joe, Jack, and John, then it'd be in Jack email, it'd be like, hey, Jack, blah, blah, blah. I contacted also John and Joe. And if you send it to Joe, then it will be Jack and John, really.
Yeah.
And I know this because that was one of the features at the time that we added into QuickMail about being able to reference colleagues of the particular prospect you were sending. So you didn't know to do any magic with your spreadsheet. All you needed is to just drag the tag. And we still have it, but no one ever implemented it. And I know that at the beginning, it was hugely popular. A lot of people were using it. And now I see that less and less.
Yeah. I'm smiling over here because yesterday I actually spoke with, it was a QuickMail user of 4 years.
Ooh.
If you're listening, shout out. He was actually doing just that for 4 years. He's been doing this exact approach with, CCing the list of colleagues. And he was saying it was time for a refresh. But for those of you who are curious, it has been working for him with some success for years.
Yeah.
So why am I not suggesting this? 2 things. I feel like it could work, but if you've got some data that tells you you've got a good shot with a couple of job title keywords, starting with one at a time, to me, is just a little bit more, it's how I would want to be approached if I was an employee at this company where, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit more precise. There's less of a shotgun element involved. It just seems like this prospect is getting a lot of the attention as opposed to looping in a bunch of people who you think might work. But at the same time, like I mentioned, that can work as well. It's sort of about style, I believe, and really just how it's going to appear to the employees. And also, I kind of believe that this approach is getting phased out because of its...
That's right.
Maybe everybody's been doing it. So I think there's a better way out there.
Yeah, it was mostly used in terms of, go-to-market, figuring out who the right contact is at that company.
Right.
So you're right, it's been overused and now people pay less attention and Jane or Joe or Jack or whoever just don't feel the need as much to reply anymore.
Okay, so what happens if you reach out to prospect A and they don't get back to you? You add another prospect from that company and they don't get back to you. And you do that until you've run out of relevant job titles. Now, keep something in mind. If you reach out to multiple people at a company with multiple emails per prospect, you've got a very, very, very high chance of getting a reply from that account. It is not too common that you'll reach out to 3 people and still not get an answer from that company. But if it does happen...
I say pick up the phone.
Yeah, I mean...
and figure why. But we made a cast on that already.
That's true. But if you really are trying to lock down this account and you feel like you have very strong emails already in place, what I suggest doing is stopping and taking a really deep dive into this account and seeing what kind of structure they have. So just visit them on LinkedIn, search for the department that you're most likely going to be reaching out to, go to their webpage, see if there's anything there that you can glean into who you should contact, and almost start this process over with even more information, because they may have a person in charge that has a job title. Like if it's an enterprise company, they may have a dedicated person for this solution, and you may not have looked at that before. So take a high level overview of this company. This is a terrible phrase, but it's almost like prospecting through like a hula hoop. You go one pass and then you return and make another pass and you return. I don't know. Do you ever give up on an account, Jeremy? If let's say this is a Reebok or a Nike or Evernote where they just have hundreds of employees.
Absolutely not. If you're doing what we advise, which is probably getting, 10 good accounts that fit great criterias, then why would you ever want to give up on them, right? I think at some point it just may be like, hey, email may not be the preferred channel for response, or my approach is completely off for this particular company. And then, from that, you can decide, is the benefit of getting them on board is worth the extra effort that you're putting in, then, go for it. It could be, picking up the phone. It could be reaching out to them on Twitter, like informally. It could be reaching them LinkedIn, whatever makes it work.
Getting a mutual introduction.
Exactly. You go maybe to second degree and then you figure out like, how can I reach out? And if you don't go, through all those hoops, then effectively that means that you probably didn't want them bad enough anyway in the first place.
Yeah.
It's actually a good test to figure out like, how easy are you giving up on your leads?
That's true.
And that may be that a good reflection of how super targeted and focused your prospecting is. Because if you're too quick on giving up on your leads, that probably means you were too quick on building up your list in the first place.
And what about this?
Boom, baby.
Mic drop. What about the fact that some companies have different spam filters? So they may not even be getting external email. I mean, I know I've had that in the past where one of my accounts had an email that said, go here. We want to make sure you're a real human before we pass this email along to the correct person. I had other people say when they're reaching out to schools, universities.
Oh, yeah.
They have really strong email spam filters. Like you said, it may not be the best channel for that account.
That's right. But it could also be that if you click on it, then you're already ahead of a lot of people who actually didn't click on.
That's right.
After blasting their email. So.
I love seeing those messages.
Yeah, me
because
too.
I know that they probably don't get a lot.
Because I know it will land in their inbox. So that's good. It's like getting your ticket, in exchange of getting something delivered. So it's really cool.
Actually, speaking about ways to get through to people, today for the first time, I had somebody sign up to my newsletter and reply to the first email with a question.
Oh, what was the question? Sorry, it's totally random, guys.
No, it's not random. They wanted to invite us on their podcast, so that'll probably happen. But I just thought, we had thrown this idea around where you could sign up to a newsletter and reply directly, and hopefully the person gets the email.
All right, guys, this is totally unscripted. But so what did he actually say that made you reply? It's probably going to come in tear down if it's that good, but it'd be interesting to figure out.
Yeah, okay, let me pull it up. Jeremy, can we cue some waiting music? So, booyah. So here's the email that they replied to my newsletter to get me to reply. It said, hey, Jack, I was reading your blog post on this site and was wondering if you would be a guest on my podcast, and then a little link to the podcast. And that's it.
Wow, straight for the kill. Okay.
Straight for the kill, but I mean, I think there's some Fox and the Crow. There's some personalization. They signed up to my newsletter. I dig it. I mean, is it still going to be reply worthy in 2020?
That's right.
I don't know. But right now it is. So if you're listening and you want to get my reply, I guess you know how to do it.
There you go. Was it? You were easily swayed.
Well, I mean, look, what's the offer here? The offer is be a guest on my show. And to be honest, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Especially that the podcast is well known. It's the right audience, blah, blah, blah. So.
All right. So you may hear us, listener. Oh, hang on. Was I also invited?
Yes, you were.
Oh, good.
Not mentioned, but I insisted. I said,
man. That hurts my ego.
It wasn't that good. If he looped you in, then I don't know. We'd probably helicopter him over to our studio or something. But yeah, so that's the copy, listeners.
Cool.
But I have a specific question for you.
Yeah, back to work. Sorry.
If you're looking at a company and you've got a list of job titles, but none of them are really matching up, maybe it's a smaller company. Do you start high or do you start low? Meaning you could go straight for the founder, or you could go for like the SDR, who is probably the one going to be using the tool or the resource.
Yeah, I guess for me, the answer is pretty straightforward, and I'd love to get your take on that. But for me, it's whoever perceives the most value with the tool. So, for example, if the tool is making sense at the CEO level, like, you know, they're going to answer some of their problem that they have, maybe it's probably going to be metric related or something that is not involved into actually doing the work.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, by all means, go to the CEO and say, hey, you know, this is something that will speak directly to you. Here's a benefit directly for you. Boom, that's great. If you have something that is more for the user, you know, it's like, hey, it's super easy to click and whatever, you're going to save some time. Sending that to CEO, probably not as clever because it's too remote from the actual problem.
But hang on, because this is...
But, here comes a but, Jack, I agree, there is a but. But it could be that, you know, the CEO doing the top-down approach saying like, hey, this is a cool thing, check it out, will give you effectively that visibility that you wouldn't have had if you were going directly to the person. Does that make sense?
It does, but what about when you think about this merge tag idea in the beginning of the cast, where like, if it's a CEO or a C-level, they're going to see this benefit. If it's an SDR, they're going to see this benefit. So do you go high or low if you can actually customize the pitch? Because look, I think you can sell, let's pick on QuickMail. I think you can sell QuickMail to the CEO level, and I think you can sell it to the SDR. I know you have. So my question is, where do you start? Where do you have any advice for the listener who says, yeah, I got a product like that or a service like that too. I could tell the CEO it'll earn him extra money or save him time, save him resources. Or I could go lower and say, hey, this is going to make your life so much better just by XYZ. What would you tell that person?
I think historically what's best for me is to figure out who's going to be my champion and who's going to benefit from it. Because we all know those tools that are imposed by the CEO that no one likes, you know, and then they're short-lived, you know. So I would basically try to go the champion route and build a use case for the upper management most of the time.
I can think of a scenario that a little bit uncomfortable as an outbounder. Think about, I'll leave the product out of it, but imagine you sent an email that said something like, hey, this helps you do XYZ. Do you think it would be helpful for your next blah, blah, blah? And they said, no, thanks. So being persistent in the same account, I went a level above, and the manager of that person says, you know what? This looks great. I'm going to loop in Joe.
Forwarded on.
Who just, little known fact, he said, not interested. And
oh, that's hilarious.
I know that's like a weird sales call, you know, when you're...
It's like you forced me to go in that sales call. Okay, I got that, you know.
Yeah. So because of this, I typically will recommend starting higher. Like if all things are equal, start higher, because if the CEO tells you not interested, wow, good luck getting that approved. That's the hardest sell I can probably imagine, if that's the decision maker. But if they say sure and they pass it down to the right person, I think you got so much momentum that you're going to move to a call. And if the CEO recommended it, I almost think that the lower employee is going to approach it, I don't know, with a little bit more of a stronger recommendation, more of an open mind. Maybe I'm off. Maybe nobody likes getting a tool pushed on them.
I think it comes back to, again, you know, check your data, try a different approach and see which one works for your industry. It could well be that in this industry, this is not how we do things here.
Yeah, very true.
For the other one, it's just like, yeah, it's perfectly fine. So I think it will definitely depend on what you're selling, at what level you're selling it, to who, what industry, and so on. So there's so many variables, but it's definitely one thing that is common to all of that is you should pay attention to that and can't just ignore that. I think that's basically the biggest point here.
Almost like keeping a beginner's mind where even though you've been pitching this, you've been selling for years and years, when you approach a new account, you really, at the end of the day, are just not 100% sure who's the correct person. So that's definitely helpful to keep in mind.
On top of that, bear in mind that we keep recommending 20% for experimentation. So I don't know, keep on doing what you're doing, sell to the C-level, for example, although the C-level's got, plus and minus. It's also difficult. Sometimes they're behind secretaries and whoever, is filtering their emails and stuff like that, which probably will be another cast. But then if, you're 20%, you can try a different job title. Or even like a completely different branch. Maybe you go to the Japan branch and, you say like, hey, konnichiwa, whatever kind of thing. And then off you go, you do your pitch. So keep that 20% to do those experimentation things.
That's right. Along those same lines, sometimes you may be surprised which department champions your product or service. I remember there was a very straightforward sales tool that we ran a test to the finance people saying, hey, this should improve numbers because it does X, Y, Z. And they were way more excited about it when pitched in that angle. So
yeah, who did you pitch first for this? I remember this story. This is a great story.
So we went to the most rational job title. It was the end user. We went there first and it was okay, but we were just curious, like, okay, maybe we can wrap the same product up in a way that finance really gets behind it. So we reached out just to CFOs and pitched them a new way to save their company a significant amount of money and asked them, is there somebody in this department that should hear about it? And it worked like twice as good as reaching out to that first department.
Well, yeah, when your CFO is coming to you and say, we need to use this tool, you're going to try to use this tool, or it's going to happen one way or another. So
yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's what you need to know then to figure out who you should contact.
That's right. Great cast, Jack.
Yeah, Jeremy. Great cast. And side note, everyone knows how to get in touch with me now. So better or for worse.
That's right.
All right, Jeremy. See ya.
Bye.
Let's quickly recap our tips for identifying the right contact people at the companies and the accounts that you're targeting. First, there isn't a surefire way to know exactly who to target. So instead, start with a list of job titles based on real customer data. You can always add more people to the campaigns if your first contact doesn't reply. And remember, it's okay to jump over to a different department if you need to, but please change the selling point based on the segment you're going after. Remember, for example, finance people care about different goals than, let's say, marketing or sales or HR. So tailor the messages for the right department. Final thing, and this wasn't mentioned on the cast, but I wanted to bring up that it may be intimidating to reach out to some of the higher C-level positions, but sometimes it's these people that are quickest to reply. So don't leave them out of the equation.
Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high vibe by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher, or TuneIn, that works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast
so they can send awesome emails
and make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.